To start editing in Fictionary Storyteller, all you need to do is click the free trial button at the top right of our fictionary.co website and you get 2 weeks for free. The first step in editing within Fictionary is to import your manuscript. It's pretty simple. You select your file, which is a docx file. You might want to change the name of your file here so that when you export it, it's different from your import name. So here's the first place Fictionary Storyteller technology helps you in your writing process. The industry standard for a novel is to start each chapter with the word chapter, and it's also reader expectations. So by doing this, prior to even editing, you're setting yourself up for success. So I start each chapter with the word chapter. If you don't use a scene break character between scenes and the transition from one scene to the next occurs at the bottom of a page, the reader's going to have no visual indication that a new scene is starting, and now they might be confused. So again, here technology is helping you get it set up properly to tell your story. We highly recommend you do this. So in the case of this book, I use a tilde and now I continue, and here Fictionary Storyteller is importing my manuscript. So StoryTeller has used AI to structure your novel for you, and you're going to go on and use it as your personal intelligent assistant to revise your story. All right, so this book has 26 chapters, 87 scenes, and over 79,000 words. StoryTeller has listed all of your characters in your novel in one place. This makes it easy for you as you're editing to see where your characters come in and out of your story and how you're utilizing them in the best way possible. So let's look at how technology can help you ensure you're making the most out of your characters. Knowing who is in each scene helps you control how the reader experiences not only the scene, but the entire story. Having a list of your characters per scene on a scene-by-scene basis gives a specific method for evaluating how you're using the characters and shows you when you need to revise a scene. So to see your characters per scene, you click the View button, and in this scene I'm showing Alyssa, Jazz, Katie, and Nick. However, I know Nick is dead. He's only mentioned in this scene, so I'm going to move him over to Characters Mentioned. So as you revise your story, you're going to find that you add characters or delete characters. And to do that, you can add a character here. You select the character we want, so let's just say it's Samantha. We're going to add her to this scene. And now we know we have 4 characters in the scene, and this will be reflected in the character insights on the Visualize page. We know it's time to revise a scene if there are too many characters in a scene. Characters appear or disappear without warning. The protagonist or antagonist are not in the key scenes. An introduced character lacks detail or has too much detail. And there are confusing names. So by confusing names, let's say we had Jazz and Jan. Those names are too close, and by viewing the character list like this, you can see that very quickly and then go and change the name. Now that we know how to update the character list, let's have a look at the character insights, and you can find these under Visualize, Character Insights. The characters per scene insight shows you how many characters are in each scene. You don't want readers to flip or click to previous pages to find out who a character is. Too many characters can cause this problem. An easy way to check if you have extra characters is to view the character list per scene and ensure that each character has a unique role. If 2 characters perform the same role, consider reducing the number of characters, or try combining 2 characters into one if the role filled by one character can be filled by another. The fewer characters there are, the more time there's available to develop each one, and the more time a reader has to grow to love the characters. So StoryTeller is showing you how many characters are in a scene. So I would scroll across here. The max number of characters is 11, so I want to find that scene. Here it is. So it's scene 44. That's a lot of characters. So then I would go back to the Evaluate page and see who's in that scene. So that was scene 44. We click on scene 44 and we view the character list. We can see Alyssa, Christopher, Dan, Henry, Irene, Katie, Nick, So now what I would do is I would review this scene and see how many of these characters really need to be in this scene and see if I could cut it down. And then I would go back and review the insight again. Let's look at one more character insight so I can give you another example of how technology will help you tell a better story. The scenes per character insight shows you the number of scenes each character appears in and also the order in which they appear in the story. Now the good thing here is Jazz Cooper is the protagonist and she's in the most number of scenes. And Vicky is the antagonist, and that's a pretty good ratio that she's in 59 scenes and comes in fairly early. So the other thing you can get from this is looking at when characters are introduced, how much detail do you give that character? Character entry is the first time a character appears in the novel. The character introduction is the beginning of the character arc. When a character exits the story, it's the end of the character arc. Major characters will probably exit the novel later in the story. Minor characters can exit at any time. The first time a character appears, they must be introduced to the reader. This is where you must determine what is the right amount of time to spend on describing them and who they are in the story. For major characters, more emphasis should be put on introducing the character and showing their goals. So this would be Alyssa, Katie, Jazz, Nick, and so on. For a minor character, write as little as possible, but still keep the reader engaged and not confused. So one of the things I can do with this insight is to look at characters who are only in one scene, and then go to that scene and look at how I describe them, and did I give as little as possible. So let's look at how to do that. On the overview page, you can see the cast of characters. And Emily was only in one scene, so I can go find Emily. I click here, and I'll view her first scene. And now I can look here and see how I described her and determine if I need to make revisions or not. Looking at an 80,000 word manuscript and trying to figure out how to fix it is really hard. So let's look at how technology can help with this. StoryTeller has organized your manuscript into chapters and scenes, so you can work on a manageable piece of your story without having to keep track of your entire novel in your head. You'll work on all of the elements, starting with character, plot, and settings, giving you a structured process to follow that takes you from scene 1 to the end. Then you get to see the structure of your story. So here, StoryTeller is drawing your story arc versus a commercially successful story arc. And you can see in this story, the plot point 1 is way too late in the story. So now the job is to go back and revise it until you get this looking right. The word count per scene is another interesting insight that's going to show you how your word count plays out for the whole structure. And you can see in this story, there's one scene over here, scene 33, that has 5,000 words. And compared to the structure of the rest of the novel, this is a little bit odd. It's something that you wouldn't see just looking at an MS Word document. You might read through it and completely miss it. But here, it gives you a visual to go away now and revise this scene. So we saw in the story arc that plot point 1 was scene 35. So let's go down and look and see if we can move that to earlier in the story. So here's scene 35. And let's say I've gone through and reviewed and I know where the scene should actually be and I've rewritten it to go in that place. I can take this scene and I can just drag it straight up and we're going to put it right here. Now you can see that the scene is automatically renumbered. And now let's go back and have a look at the story arc. All right, and you can see, well, doesn't that look much better? And this is the fun of editing within Fictionary, is as you make your changes, you can actually see the results on your story. So you saw in the word count per scene insight that scene 34 was too long to fit the structure of the story. So let's have a look at scene 34. And we do that by just clicking on it. And here's scene 34. So we're going to assume that we've read through this and we know where we want to break this up into multiple scenes. So we'll scroll part way down. And we can see here's a nice spot, 25 minutes after my class ended. So that to me says that's probably a change in time. So what we can do here is we can take this and select to the bottom of the scene. We can cut it by hitting Command X. And then over here, we click the little pencil and we add a new scene. And there, we'll paste the scene there. So now we've got an extra scene in here, and we'll see what impact that had on the word count per scene insight. Let's just scroll over and see how we did. We can see there's still over 4,000 words in this scene, and compared to the others, it's still too big. So I'm going to go back to that scene, and I'm going to have a look and find out why. And then I will edit and look at my word count per scene insight again until I get the structure just right. So how does StoryTeller help you learn? StoryTeller makes you think about aspects of your story, such as the story arc, the purpose of a scene, opening and closing types, that you might not have considered before. It's not only a platform that creates structure, it's an in-the-moment advisor that provides relevant information as you revise your story. So if you don't know what an element means, we tell you why it's important, how to use it, and we give you writing advice related just to that element. This helps you get to work quickly without having to watch how to revise videos or read books on writing. There's a lot more that Fictionary Storyteller can help you with, but when you get to that fantastic moment of finishing your revisions, come to the overview page and export your manuscript to MS Word. You can also export at any time during the revision process.